Let me paint you a picture I know too well. You're sitting there, heart full of vision. The idea is clear. The fire within you is real, but your hands are frozen. You stare at the screen, the canvas, the mic, the notebook, and quietly a voice creeps in. If I can't do it all today, maybe I'll just wait until tomorrow. And it sounds responsible. It sounds mature. Hey, even wise. But that's a lie. The voice doesn't sound like fear, but it is. And it keeps a lot of creators stuck. Because what it's really saying is, if I can't guarantee the outcome, maybe I shouldn't start. But what if that's not your job? What if your role in this creative calling isn't to control the outcome, but to show up, to give your best, and trust that your efforts never return empty? Because the longer I've walked this creative path, the more I've realized something sacred. You are not responsible for the harvest, only the seed. You are responsible for what you put in the ground. And every single day, your job is simple. Plant, water, show up, and then let God do the rest. This is my disclaimer that if you don't like the fact that I mentioned God, you're on the wrong channel. I'm not gonna tiptoe around it. I'm not backing in the door with it. I'm not gonna refer to the universe as God. God created the universe, and we're living in a world that wants to praise the creation but dishonor the creator, and this ain't that. All right, and now back to your regularly scheduled program. We live in a culture that worships results, virality, revenue, recognition, followers, fame, and yet creation, and I'm talking real creation, it's built in faith. And faith at times is uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable because it asks us to give everything we've got without knowing when you'll see a return. It asks you to move forward without knowing or seeing the whole plan. It asks you to act without applause, to show up without proof. But lately I've been thinking about this quote from Wallace Wattles. Wallace Wattles said, "Do every day what can be done that day, do each act in a successful manner, and then be done." Not stressed, not overextended, not burned out trying to do everything, just done. Because that's all that's required of you. Creation doesn't demand your exhaustion, it asks for your presence. And maybe that's where we get stuck, trying to hold the whole thing when we were only meant to carry a part of it. And the thing that we have to remember is God will not do our part, and we cannot do his. There's a divine partnership in creativity. And in every partnership, there are roles. Your role is to show up, to act in faith, to use the gifts that you've been given. God's role are the doors, the timing, the favor, and the fruit. And the moment we try to swap roles, when we obsess over our outcomes, force timing, stress over results, we step out of creativity into anxiety. And I've created this video to free you. You don't have to be the source. You just have to stay connected to it. You were never meant to manufacture miracles. You were meant to make movement. I remember a season where I poured myself into something that was huge. At least it felt that way. It stretched me, it challenged me. It required every ounce of faith I had. And when I finally released it, crickets. For weeks, it looked like nothing was happening. I almost pulled it down, almost rewrote the whole thing, almost gave up altogether. But months later, someone reached out to me and said the thing I created changed the direction of their life. That's when I realized that God never wastes a seed. He multiplies them, but it's on his timeline. And we need to be clear about something. You were never asked to be perfect, but you were asked to be excellent. And there's a difference. Perfection says don't move until it's flawless. Excellence says move with care, move with heart, and move today. Then release it. Not because it's finished, not because it's flawless, but because you showed up in alignment. And that is what multiplies over time. You don't build impact by doing it all at once. You build it by doing what matters consistently, faithfully, and fully. And here's what's interesting. The more you move in that posture, the more something shifts on the inside of you. Every time you act, even imperfectly, you build trust with yourself, you build trust with your audience, you build trust with your creator. Because action doesn't just build a project, it builds a relationship with your calling. You're not just creating things, you're becoming someone in the meantime. And that identity, it gets stronger every time you choose obedience over the outcome. So if you want to feel more confident in your creativity, stop trying to predict the outcome. Start building momentum through movement. Stagnation invites self-doubt, but motion builds creative muscle. There's a cost of creative control. Control often feels safer than trust, let's be honest. And it feels safer than trust because it gives the illusion of certainty. But there's a cost in trying to control things too tightly. When you grip things too tightly, you don't just slow down your progress, you suffocate your creativity. Control convinces you that you're protecting the vision, but really, you're delaying it. You were never meant to carry the pressure of predicting the future. You were built to carry purpose today. So the thing we need to remember is that control creates pressure, trust creates power. And I want you to hear this clearly. Yes, you were born to create, but that doesn't mean that you were born to carry it all. That doesn't mean that you were born to know it all, to predict it all. Just to create one day, one message, one conversation, and then trust, not in people's approval, not in the algorithms, but in something higher. There's a proverb that says, commit your works to the Lord and your thoughts will be established. And that proverb isn't passive. It's not just hope for the best. It's an agreement. It's a partnership. It's your effort, his elevation. Woo! Your job is the seed. God's job is the harvest. There's a story about an old man who spent his whole life building bridges. Every day he showed up early, tools in hand, vision in mind, ready to work. He wasn't famous, he wasn't flashy. Most of the bridges he built didn't have his name on it. He showed up day after day, pouring himself into his craft. Then one morning, in his final season of life, he was walking across a bridge that he had built decades earlier. And halfway across, he ran into this woman. She had tears in her eyes, bags in her hands, and she was clearly in the middle of a struggle. They struck up a conversation and she began to tell him this. I don't know where I'm at. I don't know how I ended up here. I've been walking for miles and miles, and I was ready to give up until I found this bridge. She didn't know he was the builder. She didn't know years earlier, without any applause or headlines, he had shown up and laid the foundation. But that one decision, that one act of obedience, it helped someone else who felt lost and in need. And that's what you do every time you create. You're not just building a business. You're not just writing a book. You're not just creating content. You're building a bridge. Maybe your bridge is for healing. Maybe your bridge is for hope. Maybe your bridge is for someone else's breakthrough. And most of the time, you will never know who needed it, but God does. And when you show up in faith, even when it's small, he uses your obedience to help move someone else forward. So here's your creative call today. Do your part and release the rest. Turn up, do your best, then trust deeply, fully, and faithfully. Not because you forced it, but because you are faithful. Are you done trying to do God's job? You were never asked to do his. Just do yours with integrity, with love, and with bold obedience. Drop a comment and finish this sentence. Today, I choose to show up by fill in the blank. And remember, creativity doesn't thrive in control. It thrives in trust. Always remember that growth is a journey, it's not a destination. I'm in it with you, and I'll see you on the next one.